Yeah. Recorded. Continue. So Gurudev, I just want to have a little intro for there are new devotees came into the farm, into the Krishna pad. So this meeting is for devotees, so they can take your darshan and listen to your instructions as well. So I just want to let you all know His Holiness Janananda Goswami. He's my Gurudev. He was born in the United Kingdom, and he was initiated by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada in 1972. He held various positions in ISKCON and various countries as well, like United Kingdom, Africa, Malaysia, Europe, Philippines, and New Zealand. And he was temple president for a while in New Zealand, New Varshana Temple. So there are a lot of stories how he was managing there, very nice stories. And he's also a GBC member for Kirtan. And he always like spontaneously have kirtans and the spontaneous skits, and he's very famous for that. So we are so lucky to have Gurudev's association and hear his realizations in New Govardhana. And he used to come like 2 times before to New Govardhana, and then it reduced to 1, and now it's like COVID, and he hasn't been here for 2 years, Gurudev. So, so we miss the association. So yeah.
Many books, many waters.
I would like to just introduce to you, Gurudev. Yeah. Arjuna Prabhu, he's online with Zoom meeting as well. And we got here Alyona, she's a Krishna Pad devotee. Can you hear me? Can you hear us, Gurudev?
Yeah, I'm sorry. A lot of things are being readjusted here, and I'm kind of okay. I can hear you. Oh.
Yeah. I just want to introduce our new Krishna Pad devotees, the girls.
Wonderful.
One here. So here on your left hand is Alyona. She's
I'm just
Alyona.
wondering how I can get the view. I'm just trying to. Now I can see. There they are.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Okay.
So that's Alyona here.
Well, nice to meet you, Alyona.
And that's Emma next to Alyona.
Your name?
Emma.
Emma.
Emma. She's been in Krishna Pad for how many months now? She's been coming she came first to Krishna village, and then she moved up to Krishna Pad. So, and you've been chanting? Yeah, she's been chanting, and she's a great cook as well. Yeah. And at the back is Swarna there.
Pardon?
At the back is Swarna. Swarna's wife.
Jai Hari Bol.
And here's Jodi, Arjuna's wife.
Jodi, of course, we see Jodi. Hare Krishna, Jodi.
And Ekadasi is there, Kodasi is there.
Ekadasi.
Yeah.
Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Oh, Hari Bol, Vilas.
Okay. And Vilas, and what's your name? Reed. Here's Reed at the next to Vilas is Reed.
Reed.
Yeah. He's new to Krishna Pad as well. He came to the Krishna village.
Good. Wonderful. Well, what a place to be. Krishna Pad, the lotus feet of Krishna. I was reading about the ecstasy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he saw the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu in Gaya. I was reading it this morning, and how he was ecstatic to see those lotus feet. When we see those lotus feet of Krishna, we lose all attraction for all the It said that they're buried under those lotus feet, the attraction for impersonal realization, the attraction for material pleasure, the attraction for merging Brahmananda, the pleasure of merging into Brahman, are all buried under the lotus feet of Krishna. So you stay always in Krishna Pad. I mean, you can move to another section, but always in your heart, always remain the lotus feet of Krishna. Hare Krishna. Welcome, everyone. Now, I didn't get everyone's name. As I say, I'm sorry. Is there a devotee there called Hema? Hema?
Yes, Emma.
Hema. And the devotee named Reed?
Yes.
Reed. And the other devotee, I didn't catch the two ladies on the left side of my screen, probably right on yours, I don't know.
Aliona's in the first one here.
Aliona? Aliona.
Yeah.
Aliona. Where are you from, Aliona?
Russia.
I thought so. It's a very Eastern European name. Beautiful name. Aliona. And behind?
That's Swarnarupa.
Savannah's with us.
Yeah.
Haribol Savannah. And Hema and Jody, we know. And in the front line, we've got Reed. In the front line, who's there?
Paula.
I can see. Huh?
Paula Vasquez, isn't it?
Paula?
Paula.
Where are you from, Paula?
Germany.
Germany. Hare Krishna. Nice to see you. And at the very back, behind everybody,
That's
is Sham.
Sham is there.
Sham. And who else is there? I can see Sham.
Yeah, and the other one, David. Stand up, David.
Dave, how about Dave?
2007.
Don't get bossed around here. He's bossing you around. Don't have to be bossed around.
And here the front next to Paula is Steph.
Steph?
Yeah.
Steph. Hare Krishna, Steph. Nice to see you all. Wonderful. Well, okay, so that's it now, is it? That's the end of the program?
And Chintamani is here as well.
Pardon? Where is Chintamani?
Chintamani, come in the front.
There she is, hiding around the corner there. Well, Haribol, Chintamani. I'll reply your letter sometime this year. I'm just so lazy with letters. Not lazy, I just, it's difficult to keep up with them. Some devotees, senior devotees are much more advanced. Like into Dumna Swami, last time he told me he has about 7,000 letters a year to answer.
Wow.
You can imagine that with everything else. How on earth do you expect someone to answer 7,000 letters in a year? That's a lot of letters. And I don't know how many it is. You could answer about 30 letters a day. Or I don't know. Is that right? I don't know. Maybe 30 letters a day. I mean, you got to answer them every day and do everything else. It's not easy. I only get about 3,000 a year, so it's a little easier. Okay, so what should we do? What do you want us to do? Shall I start with a little kirtan?
Yes, Maharaj, 5 minutes kirtan.
5 minutes, okay, that's pretty quick.
Yeah.
Krishna, Krishna. Okay. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadini Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Om Vishnu Pada Paramahamsa Parivajacharya Statar Sata Shriya A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki, Shri Shri Gaur Nitai Ki, Shri Shri Krishna Balaram Ki, Shri Shri Radha Govardhana Dari Ki, New Govardhana Dham Ki. Go Premanandi, all glorious to the assembled devotees, all glorious to Shri Guru and Gauranga, all glorious to Srila Prabhupada, Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vastavitale, Shri Mate Bhaktivedanta Swamiti Namani Namaste, Sazati Deve, Gauravani Vacharine, Nevasesha Sanyavadi Pastachari Shatani, Vanchakalpa Turubhyascha, Kripa Sindhu Bevacha, Patitinam Pavanevyo, Vaishnavevyo, Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. And well, some of you have disappeared. Oh, there you are. You've returned to the screen. So, well, Krishna Pad. To reach Krishna Pad, we have to go through Prabhupada. That's how we can really get Krishna Pad, through the mercy of the spiritual master, through the mercy of the devotees. You know, I don't know if Ganga maybe mentioned it, but I stayed 1 year in New Govardhana in 1991. And since then, of course, as she said, I visited quite a lot. I stayed a lot of time in the beginning, sometimes 3 months at a time. But over the last years, it's been once a year, getting old, getting busy, tied up here in France for most of the time now, all the time since COVID lockdown began. And what to say? Maybe a lot of people's happiness was interfered with unexpectedly. I don't think anyone likes to be locked down. Are you okay? Everyone's looking around. Of course, there are other devotees online. It's not just the devotees in New Govardhana, but I'd like to thank you for inviting us to share with you today and to get your association. And we're very much missing the Dham, Govardhana. New Govardhan Dham is the most beautiful place. I think, materially speaking, most people find it very beautiful also. But especially from the spiritual point of view, almost 45 years of dedicated service of many devotees there at New Govardhan is serving the deities has created such a wonderful atmosphere there in New Govardhan, and the wonderful dedication of your leadership there, Ajita Prabhu, has stabilized the project there in New Govardhan to what it is now, to make it available for so many devotees. It's wonderful. Thank you all very, very much. It brings happiness to us just to think of New Govardhan and to remember the devotees and the deities there in New Govardhan. So today's subject is finding true happiness. Is that right? Is that right, Vilas? Is that correct? We may ask ourselves, have we found true happiness or not? Well, let's look at the subject matter a little bit today of happiness. I think you know, I'm in France right now. France is, they have many, many different things called surveys, Gallup survey and this thing and that, ascertaining various levels of, whatever, happiness or something or another, economic well-being and whatever it is. But funnily enough, some of the countries which are rated the happiest countries also have the highest levels of suicide and the highest levels of drug taking, murder, rape, you name it. Not all, but some. And some of the countries, according to some polls, Gallup polls, which are considered to be very low on the scale of economic scale, because sometimes they're judged on, economic stability. It certainly is one factor which brings some kind of security, happiness in people's lives, you may say. But is it true happiness? If we look at true happiness, we'd have to look at the quality or the characteristic of true happiness. Of course, maybe different people would ascertain that differently. But from the point of view of a broader perspective, we would have to understand true happiness is something which goes a little deeper than just the external impetus. For instance, if you're rich, you might feel some kind of happiness. If you're beautiful, you might feel some kind of happiness. If you're famous, if you're strong, if you're knowledgeable, different, generalizations which may bring some happiness to people's lives on the mental platform. But how long, we have to ask, how long do they last? There are many factors which may influence the duration of that so-called happiness. Now, sometimes for ladies, when they're young, they may be considered to be physically beautiful. And when they're old, maybe they're still seen as beautiful to some extent, but not in the same way as they were when they were young. Most ladies understand this. It may be one of the causes of anxiety, fear, distress in the heart sometimes. Men may lose their vitality also as they grow older. We may lose our memory. We lose our sensual capacity. When we're young, generally our senses are quite active. They're quite alive. They're quite fresh. And we get taste out of many things in life. And as we get older, some of you there are over age. No, never too old for Krishna consciousness, but in terms, although Ekadashi, she stays ever fresh. I've seen that, diving into the swimming pool, running into the ocean, jumping up and down in kirtan, etc., etc. Even though her body is more senior probably than anyone else online. I don't know for sure, but most likely. But sometimes that happens. But in many cases, and in all cases, eventually, after a few years in this body, the sources of our happiness start to, the source remains, but the happiness we get from contacting them generally reduces. Sometimes we suffer from some ailment, some debilitating ailment. It might be diabetes, it might be Alzheimer's, it may be some ongoing thing which really diminishes our capacity to enjoy sweets or to remember even who our mother is sometimes. You know, Alzheimer's is not usually remembering our mother, it's remembering our children, because it's usually old age disease usually, or it may be some cancer or some other disease which can affect anyone, which interferes with their thoughts of happiness, or we fail. We can look at other forms of happiness in this world. There's so many. Did you know that according to many Gallup polls, that the number one desire of people is somehow or another to be happy? And it's interesting to note that in the case of trying to be happy, that they analyze, it's very hard to achieve it, extremely hard. Not even that, but it's harder to maintain it, even if we get temporarily what we think is going to make me pleasurable. Like, so there are some youngsters there, maybe a new skateboard or a new tennis racket, or, you know, watching some sport, or going to the beach. You've got Surfers Paradise and Byron Bay and so many places over there where you can surf and enjoy. Well, Prabhupada, when he was at the beach in Hawaii, he said, what are they doing? He said, they're surfing. And Prabhupada said, they're not surfing, they're suffering. But from the material temporary point of view, it looks like we're surfing, we're enjoying ourselves. I know when we go on book distribution in Surfers Paradise, I've been there quite a few times over the last 30 years on book distribution or Harinam, and you approach one of these young macho boys, young man, maybe 20 years old, with a surfboard under one arm and a girl under the other, and a bottle of beer kind of in between somewhere and another. And you try to convince them then the material world is not a place of happiness. It's very hard for them at that stage to relate to that, because they think they're really enjoying themselves. You know, man, you got a problem. You don't know what happiness is. This is happiness. Surfer's paradise. You go to the pub afterwards, you get drunk, you get arrested after that, by the way. But you have a great time while you can. Make the most of it. Eat, drink, and be merry now, as they say, because tomorrow you may die. And that's a fact. The real fact is that, you know, any kind of happiness in this world has a limit. Not only limit in the extent of the happiness we can get, or even whether we get happiness from what we thought we could get happiness from in the first place, and time interferes anyway, for sure. Everyone knows so much disappointment in our endeavors for happiness in this world, even on the Gold Coast. You can get so much I met one boy there, Indian boy at the program, the Gold Coast program one time. He was pretty much crying. He said he's afraid for his life. He was enticed to go to the casino. He lost all his money. Then he was enticed to borrow money, and he lost that as well. Now there are people chasing him for his life, practically speaking, thinking he could get happy by making money. Basically, the happiness is material world in many cases. Another aspect of that is to escape, because people are depressed. The number one disease in the Western world is depression, fatigue and depression. Far out, isn't it? We've got all the modern facilities, and many times they find that countries like Bangladesh, and it depends which way you look at it, they're considered to be a happy nation, although they're poverty stricken from the GNP point of view, and so many external distresses, because they have a different quality of life, you could say, not based on the expectations of our Western society. So according to many surveys, people who are studying these things, happiness is basically when we can escape from our anxiety or our fears. We forget it. You know, people sleep, for instance, is an escape, basically. You know, watching TV, you know, an escape. Going for a holiday, you know, it's like an escape from our normal situation. And then we go back to so-called normality. Taking intoxication. These are some of the common things. And I'm feeling really good now. I've had a cigarette. Great, well done. You smoked a cigarette, or you have a cup of coffee. Very popular these days. Sit around drinking a cup of coffee. You know, but how long does it last, and how deep does it go? It's artificial, external. We're in Taoism. I don't know if any of you have practiced Taoism in your lives, but they used to have a saying that the creator, they have some idea there's some kind of creator, be it what it may. The creator is, you know, everything has made one thing. I don't know if we need that open or not. Is it okay? Okay, if it makes it better, open it, no problem. We're mourning over here. I mean, don't mean mourning in the sense of mourning the death of somebody, which is one of the unavoidable sufferings of this world, or happiness if you want to get rid of them. But it's the morning of the day over here. I sang a morning raga just now. You're the evening in Australia and in New Zealand side of the world, midday if you're in India or Malaysia side of the world. But in Europe, it's the morning now. The sun is just rising. We've got a nice clear sky. People are going out for a wonderful morning walk, breathing the air of the ocean. We're on the ocean shore here, and they're breathing the nice air of the ocean. But, you know, well, how deep is that? That's depending on an external source. So in Taoism, they say the actual creator has made one thing very hard to attain, and that is happiness. People are searching for happiness. We look for it in the sea, go into the beach, breathe that air, have a good swim, lie in the sun. Maybe there's a pretty chick over there, maybe a handsome boy, whatever it may be. Eat some ice cream, have a candy floss. I don't know if you have candy floss over there in Australia, or whatever you do on the beach, you know, until you get sunburned or some dog comes and pees on you or some unfortunate event takes place. Hopefully you don't get swept away in the surf. Or some shark comes around for his lunch. We hope not. But whatever it is, there's always a limit to the happiness which one can derive from it. Maybe we saw people were on the beach here in Malaysia, well, not in Malaysia now, but when I was in Malaysia, one day people were happily on the beach. We were just near the beach and we wasn't far from it. And suddenly everything started shaking. And a few minutes later, a huge tidal wave came in and thousands of people got swept away in the tidal wave. They went there for pleasure and they ended up losing everything. This is the nature of the world. So the creator put happiness in a place that is hard to find it. And even materially, people find it hard to find real happiness. You think you've got it, then it's gone. We're always chasing it, but we never really get it. In India, they have this example of a donkey. What do you call a donkey? You have donkeys in Australia, I guess. I mean, four-legged donkeys. I don't mean the two-legged ones. Four-legged donkeys. And they sometimes, to get them to work, they put a stick on their forehead with a carrot hanging on it. So the donkey thinks, if I just go forward 1 foot, I will reach the carrot. But then they get there, they say, well, the carrot's still 1 foot ahead. They keep going forward. They're donkeys. They don't have the intelligence to realize that we keep trying for it. We never really get it. Our whole life is based on that, even in old age. I remember when my mother was when she was about 80 something, I went to see her, and my brother had made a house for her to live in next to his, but she didn't want to stay there. She wanted to stay in the old age people's home. So she was staying there in the old age people's home. And what was happening was, my father was a real fanatic about football. Now you call it soccer, I think, in Australia. A real fanatic about football. But my mother didn't like it. But my father left his body, and my mother was in this home. And she was always, I went to see her, she wouldn't talk to me. She said, be quiet, I'm watching the football. I'm watching the football. I thought you didn't like football. No, I'm watching the football. She was glued to the television. I thought, what's going on here? And I realized it's because of her attachment to my father. And my father was so attached to football that this helped her to feel his presence. He was so attached, but everything has to be taken away. Everything's taken away in due course of time. Everything. And when we only have this source, even mental happiness, which is based upon a certain environmental situation, be it gross, subtle, be it this, whatever stage in the cosmic manifestation we're in, it still changes. We can't depend upon it. Even it states in the scriptures, even if we get liberation, that is also not complete, because we can fall out of that situation. Any degree of material happiness, even if you go to heaven, where you can live a long time, if you believe in these things, you can live millions of years. And you can enjoy fruits that you never even believed in. You know, you never even existed in this planet. And you can enjoy so nicely. Comes to an end. Comes to an end. So they say the creator put happiness in a place that you cannot find it, in the air, on the land, In the sea around us, you look and look and look, and it's not really satisfying to the soul. It doesn't really satisfy the soul fully. Temporary, maybe a little satisfaction on the mental platform. We're seeing a nice picture which we like. Now, don't forget, what brings you or me happiness doesn't necessarily bring the other person happiness. It may bring them distress. Simple to understand. Huh? You may go to a restaurant. There's tons of restaurants here selling fish. And you may enjoy eating that fish. But what about the fish? Does he enjoy it being eaten? It doesn't know, it's dead. But he certainly, did you know that 7 billion fishes are killed every day on this planet for the tongue of humans? 7 billion? Most of them are just thrown back. They're called, sea trash or something. They just throw them back in the ocean dead. 7 billion a day estimated. You think they're happy about that? I doubt it. One person's happiness is often another person's distress. So is this true happiness? This is called selfishness. It's not happiness. We're interested in my own pleasure and extended pleasure. When I see my family happy, I'm happy. When my team wins, I'm happy. When I'm in the place which I like, I'm happy. But this is all self-centered. It's not really true happiness. True happiness is a completely all-pervasive situation where everyone is satisfied. Do you find such a situation in this world? I doubt it. So where has he hidden it? In Taoism, it says, he's hidden it in your heart. And who looks in there deep into our heart? Very few people. We don't have the means. We're so much on the mental platform. We're so much under the modes of nature. Our happiness, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, is completely based upon our situation within the modes of nature. And because different people are in different modes, 3 modes, goodness, passion, ignorance. And don't forget, it's not one or the other. There's a mixture. They're always mixed. But there's a general influence of the modes, different happiness in different modes of nature. And if we have time, we'll read a little bit from Bhagavad Gita in a minute on what Krishna says about happiness. But because people are under the modes, their happiness is based upon the body, mental and physical, which we have now. We received a mental and physical body according to our karma. And according to that karma, we get a certain degree of happiness and distress. And it will vary, as we all know. I remember when I was a kid, I used to like to listen in the 60s, it was the like rock music, what we know, I don't know if you still call it rock music, but things like, well, let's give an example, like Beatles, Rolling Stones, groups you may have heard of, were becoming very popular, and it was generally termed as rock music. May have had its various degrees of rock music or not, and we as young people, we were very attracted to listen to this music. We got some kind of satisfaction, excitement, relief, whatever it was, from listening to, Rolling Stones singing, I can't get no satisfaction. Bit of a contradiction, isn't it? You're getting happiness from someone who's telling you they can't get any happiness, but somehow or other we got happiness from it. It's kind of weird. And so many songs were like that. They were almost like, depressing if you listen to the actual lyrics sometimes. But somehow or another we got some satisfaction out of that. But my mother hated it, and she would always complain, and she would try to put Frank Sinatra, if you ever heard of him, on at the same time, saying, turn that rubbish off, And I would turn it up louder, and it was like a competition. And she was getting pleasure from Frank Sinatra, but not from the Rolling Stones. I wasn't much of a Stones supporter, but I'm just giving you an example. Different people taste the same thing differently because because the thing is the same, but we have a different karmic body. And our so-called happiness is depending on our karmic body. It's not depending on the thing that we think is happiness or distress. It's our karma, our mind, our senses, our body, and our attachments to various persons and how it affects them, etc., etc. So most people don't know really what will make them happy. I mean, it's one of the biggest questions. How can I be happy? People don't really know. and different people give different ideas and try to help you analyze what will make us happy, etc., etc. But it, generally speaking, it always escapes us. And we don't know why. Why am I not happy? I'm doing so many things. And we get that in Krishna Consciousness. Some of you may have also asked that question. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Why am I not happy? Why am I not happy? So we're always expecting some kind of, we're not looking inside. We're not making that inner quest, that inner journey where real happiness. There's a nice story. Have you heard of Francis of Assisi? Some of you have probably heard of him. Famous saint from Italy, some centuries ago. And very famous, even devotees, even Prabhupada, our spiritual master, recognized him as being spiritual, self-realized soul. So one time he was walking with some of his brothers, so to speak, in the mountains in Italy. It gets cold in the winter. I don't know if any of you are from Italy. Anyone from Italy? Anyone been to Italy? I can only see the screen in front of me. There's a few of you have been. Joda's been, and one or two others have been there. Is that who is that? Paula? No, Paula's on the right. Is that Hema? Who's Hema? Hema's here, and on the front row we've got Steph. Where's Steph? There is. So Steph and Jody have been to Italy. Jai. So I probably went in the summer or on the beach or something, but you go in the winter in the mountains, it's pretty cold. So anyway, they're walking in the mountains from the to a monastery somewhere, and they're going along, and one of the brothers is asking Francis, where do we find true happiness, really? And they said, well, you find it, you don't find it in, even if we have all the knowledge and all the facilities and the lovely place and the climate, and even if we're, even if we know all the scriptures, that doesn't mean we're going to be fully happy. Even if we call ourselves Christians, that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to be truly happy. And so the brother was thinking, well, where on earth we find happiness? So they came to the monastery late at night, and it was really cold. And, they weren't very well dressed. They were very austere. Most people find austerity not a very happy situation, like taking a cold shower in the morning, or we're in really cold weather, whatever it is, eating very little, not usually a place where people go for happiness. Anyway, they were like that. They came to the monastery, and the caretaker, everyone was asleep. The caretaker came to the door and said, go away, it's too late. They hoped to stay there at night. And then they said, oh, what are we going to do? They sat there. After a while, the brother said, oh, I can't take this anymore. So they knocked again. The caretaker said, look, I told you to go away. Who are you? And the brother said, this is St. Francis of Assisi, or whatever he was called in those days. And I'm brother so-and-so. Oh, go away. I don't believe you. Go away, you guys. Get out of here. And he got a bit angry. The caretaker then beat them with a stick and told them to buzz off. So they were lying there being beaten in the cold. It was snowing. And Francis looked at the brother and said, this is where you find true happiness. Well, how do you work that one out? That doesn't sound very good to me. We have to get beaten with sticks and lie on the ground groaning to be happy? Not exactly. He's referring to a real happiness, not something that depends all the time on what I want. Happiness in this world is what I want, and when I get what I want, I may be happy. Or we think we're going to be happy, huh? What I want. He said, this is where, because in that situation, when we're not troubled, not bothered by anything, I can read that verse. Actually, there's a nice verse in the Bhagavad Gita. I don't know if I can find it just like that, but I'll try to find it. Just give me a second. Where Krishna says the same thing, basically. It's in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And I'm sure some of you have read the Bhagavad Gita. Let me see if I can find it now. I don't know if I'm going to find it. Chapter 6 should be here. Here it is. So this is from the 6th chapter, text number 20. And Krishna says, the stage of perfection is called trance or samadhi, when one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by practice of yoga. This is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness and enjoys himself through transcendental senses. We can't find true happiness through in a relative world that we're in. We have temporary senses, temporary mind, temporary body. So true happiness is eternal. This is one of the characteristics. And if you do get round to read Nectar of Devotion, you'll see this is one of the characteristics of real happiness. It is eternal. It's a constant state. It's not like in this world, like if a person's a drug addict, they have to constantly be, shooting. They have to be constantly be, recharging their whatever, batteries, whatever you call it. Otherwise, they get depressed, miserable, pain. And material life is like that. It's not a constant. We have to constantly be finding something now to make me happy. A new place, a new friend, a new this, a new that. A different experience, a new music, a new film, a new drug, something or another. Establish this, thus, one was actually in true happiness, internal, inside the heart, where one is feeling one's very existence. How can we be happy if we don't know who we are? It's a good question. Sometimes we used to say that on Sankirtan. I want to be happy, but if you don't know who I am, how can I be happy? We're trying to satisfy something we're not. It's an illusion. It's a falsity. The first thing is on the path of happiness is we have to find out who we are. If we don't realize who we are. And this is one of the challenges of aspiring devotees. We haven't yet realized who we are. We may be faced in the past. We may be practicing the past. We may have some experience. Sometimes there's a negativity towards our material experiences that we have, where we become disappointed. Sometimes there's a quest for realization, a quest for knowledge. Krishna says 4 types of persons approach him. But we may not have reached that platform of true happiness yet. We're getting a little spray, like at the ocean, you get a spray sometimes, a sample of that spiritual happiness, true spiritual happiness. It's not just about realizing who we are. That may be Brahman, called Brahman, or impersonal realization. But to realize who we are is an eternal factor of our very being, to understand our relationship. I think in the material world, probably the most, let's say, deep happiness we get is from relationships. And when they're broken, it's the hardest to recover from. Relationships between boys and girls are very deep. Men and women, children, family members, friends, because that's the real level of happiness on the spiritual platform, that interaction with Krishna and his expansions. Unending happiness. Unlike in the material world, we may have some happiness when we have a friend or a family member, a lover, parent, child, and even maybe a pet dog, whatever. Some happiness is there, but it's temporary. And it has its limits. Just like you may get happy at the Sunday feast. You have a Sunday feast there, right? Ganga, you have a Sunday feast at New Govardhana? No? No Sunday feast. Why not? I guess you're saying something. I can't hear you. I can guess the answer. I can guess the answer. You have to speak, you have to not just mime.
The restrictions.
You're happy.
Yeah.
Huh?
Restrictions with COVID. We can't have many people attending, so we canceled the Sunday feast for a.
Oh my goodness, this is terrible. Terrible. We never canceled our Sunday feast once at all during the whole session in New Mayapur in France. You should come here. You come here and enjoy the Sunday feast every week. No, we never stopped once. We stopped to the public for a while, but we never stopped the Sunday feast. And we went on behind closed doors.
We have every day, but not the public.
I know you can't avoid it in New Govardhana. The prasadam there is so good, but still the Sunday feast is fantastic. No doubt is a source of pleasure to many people. But you can't what do you like? You like gulab jamuns? Well, I don't know what you like to eat. So what do you like, Gopal? Gulabs? What do you like to eat?
I like.
Huh? What do you like? Gulabs? Samosas? Pizza? Ice cream? I have to get Guru to cook in there. Pizzas, ice cream, I don't know what you all like there. Anyway, whatever it is. Curd, cheese. Give me the sabji. That means give me the curd, right? Doesn't mean give me the fried curd. You say, give me the sabji. That's going to be full of curd. In Australia, you love your curd. So whatever it is, how many gulabs can you eat? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What's your record?
Maybe 10.
10, not bad. I got up to 27 one time. I don't like gulabs much, but I was in a competition. I ate 20. They're the worst gulabs I've ever tasted in my life. I got up to 27. 90% of the devotees had dropped out before 10. There's only about 5 of us left, and I was the oldest. All the others were young guys and 4 boys and me. And everyone was struggling. I got up to 27. I went up to 120 ladus in one time. 120 at one shot. Ladus. I was ecstatic. I felt so good. But how long did it last? I couldn't eat anymore. The reason I couldn't eat anymore, there were no more left to eat. I could have eaten more. Sometimes there's none left, which is quite often the case. And sometimes you just can't eat anymore for one reason or another. It's limited. In the spiritual world, there's no limit. Real happiness has no limits. It's unlimited. But it is not based on what I want exactly. It's based on really what I want, because I want to be really happy, truly happy. And true happiness is found in that loving in love. In this world, the highest happiness is generally experienced in love of one kind or another, but it is temporary. There's nothing wrong with love. Love is an eternal characteristic of the soul, but we're just placing it in the wrong, not totally the wrong direction, but the incomplete direction of placing it only to Krishna's parts and parcels, or to Krishna's energy, loving the energy, loving the people, condition, the karma, the physical bodies, minds of people in this world, but not the soul. We have to find the soul. And when we love the soul, and ultimately love the supreme soul, loving the soul alone is impersonal Brahman realization. It's Brahmananda. It's a higher form of happiness. You may have different types of material happiness, but then there's the spiritual happiness. Different types of spiritual happiness are there too. So the Brahman realization is devoid of the real characteristic of love, which is loving reciprocation, not just to love oneself, but to love the supreme self and to love everything in relation with him. That's true love. And that will bring unending happiness. And it brings an end to all the sources of suffering. The sources of suffering which we are exposed to in this world are caused by ignorance of identity. We're thinking I'm this body. We're thinking by bodily things we can get happy. Yes, there's some little happiness there, sukha. And there's also dukkha. Sukha, dukkha, da. There's happiness and distress. And Krishna explains this to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita, matra sparshas tu kunteya. The non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress in this world, their disappearance in due course of time, are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer. They come and go. We have to learn to tolerate that kind of duality if we want to realize true happiness. And that alone is not enough. Then when we should a little bit further to understand we have a relationship with each other on the spiritual platform, not just the material one, but in relationship with Krishna. Then true happiness becomes accessible. I'm watching my watch. Now, I don't know where to go from here. I've got so many verses we could quote from the Bhagavad Gita. I'll read 1 or 2 more. First of all, we go to the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which is where Krishna talks about happiness in the modes of nature. One of the reasons that as devotees, we're not feeling happy is because we're still affected by the modes. Not only have we not got deep realization of ourselves, we're still affected by the modes. So before we forget, because our time is limited, how to become free of the effect of the modes if we're on the spiritual path. The effects of the modes, and the modes affect us to react to situations in different way, to experience different pleasures or distresses in different situations, to think that this will bring me happiness and so on, or distress or whatever it is. Just the modes of nature in action. They're the ones arranging different situations, and also we've been given a particular set of senses which react to situations in different ways. According to their karma, the modes of nature create various circumstances. So different living entities we can see easily are affected by that. You see a drunkard, they're happy by lying around, filthy, dirty, drinking liquor, groaning and moaning at people, get away from me, give me a dime, or go buzz off, they're mode of ignorance. We see people get happiness from very passionate activities, some people from good activities, maybe by living a natural life, a pure life, maybe by classical music, or by just being good to people and so on. You see all the modes acting in their life, not difficult to see, and how different people aspire in different directions. And that effect is still there amongst aspiring devotees to a certain degree. We're expecting something external from our service, whether it's relief from distress or achievement of some position or some object or whatever it may be, some recognition, etc. So Krishna says, now please hear from me about the three kinds of happiness which the conditioned soul enjoys, and by which he sometimes comes to the end of all distress. That which is the beginning may be just like poison. That which in the beginning may be just like poison, but at the end is just like nectar, and which awakens one to self-realization, is said to be happiness in the mode of goodness. It's still goodness. It's like you go to school, you go to college. Why? We're trying to get education so that we can get something. It may not be so pleasurable going to school. It may not be so pleasurable even working, but we think we're going to get something to achieve happiness. So that may not be goodness exactly, but to a certain extent, that is there, that it may not be in the beginning so happy, but in the long run, it becomes happy. Then he says, Krishna says, that happiness which is derived from contact of the senses with their objects, and which appears like nectar at first, but poison at the end, is said to be the nature of passion. And it's very common. We get some thing, and then in the end, we're suffering from it. Maybe we overeat, or we do something which creates some distress. So that's usually driven by passion. And in the mode of ignorance, Krishna says, is blind to self-realization, which is delusion from beginning to end, and which arises from sleep, laziness, and illusion, is in the mode of ignorance. So that's kind of summary Krishna gives. There are the three kinds of happiness in this world. And because we're a little bit mixed in our devotional service, those effects of the modes are still there. And therefore, we get disappointed sometimes, we become excited. It's all right to become excited, positively speaking. It's natural in the growth stage. So we may say, how are we going to move forward? Or if we want to, that is, to a deeper form of happiness, which does not depend on external circumstance. It doesn't depend on being recognized. It doesn't depend on what we're doing. It doesn't depend on where we are. It doesn't even depend on health, although all these things certainly have an effect on us. But ultimately, real happiness is a much, much deeper level. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur himself, one of our great teachers, has written a beautiful song called Srinam. And the first line of that song, except for the chorus, goes, well, I'll sing the first line. Gai Goro Madhusvare. Lord Chaitanya sings in a very beautiful voice. Vihe Tako Vani Tako Sada Hari Bole Dako Sukhe Dukhe Bulonako Vadane Harinam Korore. He sings whether we're married or single, man or woman, it doesn't matter. Always chant Sada Hari Bolo Dako. Always fill your lips with the holy name. Sukhe Dukhe Bulonako. Whether we're happy or whether we're distressed. Always fill the lips with the holy name. Always chant the holy name of Krishna. Maya jala bodo hoye, achom chikajaloye, ekana chetana peye, radhamadava, ambolore. We're struggling in this material world, trying to be happy, going from one life to the next, one place to the next, one occupation to the next, toiling, working hard, trying to find happiness, searching here and there, satisfaction for the self. Unfortunately, although we've attained this rare human birth, Ekona Chaitanya Pa, rare chance in this human life, we're wasting our life trying to get material happiness. And when we're frustrated, we just want to get free of it. But that is also not the goal. We've wasted our life. We should chant Radha Madhava, Nam Bolore, always chant the names of the Lord. This will free us from their suffering and open the doorway to true happiness, eternal happiness, real happiness based on our actual nature, spiritual nature, something that can never be removed. It's called Sthai Bhav, constant ecstasy, constant pleasure. Jivano hoilo shesh, nobody shikesh. Because this human life may end at any moment. Don't waste it. Engage our senses in the service of Rishikesh. If you've ever been with somebody who's really happy, of course, if we don't like them, we may feel sad. But if we like that person, then we feel happy in their association. We feel pleasure in the association of things we like. And there's no one more. Krishna is known as the Rama, Govinda, the reservoir of pleasure. Imagine being in a reservoir of gulabs with the capacity to eat unlimited gulab jamans. What ecstasy you'd be in if you're a gulab bhakta. You'd be so happy. But how long? Of course, materially that won't last. From the transcendental point of view, the spiritual world is an ocean, unlimited. It's not even limited. It's unlimited by space and time. There's no consideration of time and space on that platform. Sat Chit Ananda, eternal, blissful, full of knowledge. And that's that platform. The soul is always happy. And even if we are in this apparently in this material world, just like Francis or Jesus or any of these realized souls, these transcendentalists, they're not affected themselves by the circumstance. They're only affected by others' suffering in this world. That's their only pain. There's their only pain in this world, to see others suffer. But internally they know that because they're connected. And they're connected to the reservoir, just like your plug connected to the electricity is charged up. You don't need a battery. Batteries run out. The material happiness is just like having a little battery, and it runs out after a while. You have to get another one. You might recharge it a little bit, but that has its limits too. Everything's limited in this world. So Krishna consciousness means to enter into the reservoir of unlimited, unending happiness in relationship. And how is it affected? By chanting the holy names, and ultimately by satisfying Krishna or pleasing Krishna, because we're part and parcel of Krishna. Mame Vangsa Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. We're his part and parcel. Just like your finger in the body. You don't have to make a separate endeavor to satisfy the finger. By feeding the stomach, the finger is nourished. Of course, we do sometimes if it gets injured or if it's cold or something. But generally speaking, the finger is automatically sustained, maintained, satisfied by feeding the body or feeding the stomach. So it's part and parcel of God or Krishna. When we satisfy Krishna, automatically we're satisfied. Just like in love, if you satisfy your girlfriend or boyfriend, if they're happy, you feel happy. Of course, it's limited and it's based upon temporary factors. But nonetheless, the principle is eternal. We experience it in this world, but in a small degree. But in a spiritual path, it becomes a permanent effect. So look, we've run out of time and we haven't covered a lot of stuff, obviously. But if anyone would like to ask any questions, please do so. Anybody there? I don't know how you're going to ask questions. You can do it on chat, if I can find the chat. There is a chat box for anyone outside of New Govardhana, or you can put the sound on and speak. Ganga is speaking and Hema is coming. Hema? Hema? Is this Hema? You have to put your sound on. Put your sound on.
Yeah.
Okay, Hema, where are you from again?
I'm from here. I'm from Australia.
What are you doing there? There's an Australian there. What are you doing? What are you doing there? Great. Well, nice to hear from you, Hema. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you for your service. I really enjoyed the lecture. Thank you. I was wondering if there was like a special memory that you have of Prabhupada, or like a nice, potent bit of advice about happiness from Prabhupada that you might like to share with us.
Happiness with Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Hema. That's bringing Prabhupada to Krishnapad. To get to Krishnapad, as we said, we have to, it may not be, you can take it literally or you can take it in terms of principles. Through the representative of Krishna, Krishna is approached. This is a standard understanding, I think, in all spiritual paths. So happy moments with Prabhupada. Okay, I'll share one moment. I'm not going to share much because most of my remembrances, because I'm really a rascal number one, not even number one. And most of the time when I was with, the memories I have of Prabhupada, where Prabhupada were mostly kind of like, let's say, not chastising, but pointing out things which should be better, put it like that. But I remember, I can tell two. I'll tell one of each. I'll tell one. First, we'll start with the they're both happy. They're both very happy. But one nice time was in 1977 when we were in the Bhaktivedanta Manor in London. And in 1977, Srila Prabhupada, in a very health-wise, his body was virtually dead, physically speaking. So Prabhupada came. I don't know what happened there. I lost the screen. There you go. Prabhupada came to England. Really speaking, no one would travel in that condition, but he came. So he stayed about 2 weeks in the UK because he said he wanted to reciprocate the love of his disciples. He could feel their love for him was overwhelming to such an extent when he was in London. He couldn't come down for the program hardly at all. He'd come for darshan and then he would go. He couldn't bear the emotional love of his disciples during Guru Puja, etc. He stayed in his room most of the time. He did go out a little bit, but not much. And he came down. During that time when he was there, it was his birthday. We call it Vyasa Puja. And Prabhupada came down and he sat for the whole program. Well, not maybe most of the program. And he sat on his Vyasa-san in the temple room, in the manor. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj, who was there at the time, one of Prabhupada's senior disciples, and the one who was with Prabhupada all the time in his last months, Tamal Krishna Maharaj actually brought Prabhupada to London, basically on his request, and looked after him day and night during his last months, practically. So he was giving a talk. Prabhupada probably asked him, I don't know, to speak, and he spoke. We didn't all give offerings that year. Tamal Krishna Maharaj just gave a life summary of Srila Prabhupada's achievements. And sometimes Prabhupada would interject with extra information or corrections. And then after the wonderful, it was ecstatic lecture in that sense. Everyone was enthralled. Nobody moved an inch. After that, Prabhupada was sitting there and the ladies had prepared, as is customary, a beautiful cake. In the Western world, we like our cake. So they brought this big cake in, and it's quite customary that you have candles in the cake. I guess that still goes on. In most parts of the world, it's become a custom. And they had candles. And Prabhupada, I was quite close to Srila Prabhupada, sitting in the temple room, and Prabhupada was looking at the cake, and he looked very happy in a sense, you could say, inner happiness there. And he looked at the cake and he asked the devotee who brought it, how many candles are there? And the lady said, 81, Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada kind of smiled and said, no, 82. So interesting feature, because it was 1977. Normally we say Prabhupada was 81, but Prabhupada said, no, 82. As in India, Prabhupada pointed out, that in India, in the Eastern world, they consider when you were born is your first birthday. Well, it is your first birthday. Of course it is. It's not your no birthday, it's your first birthday. So this is your 82nd birthday. That's how they look at it a little differently than we do. So it was kind of, everyone laughed. It was like Prabhupada, you know, and even it, and of course at that time Prabhupada wasn't able to walk that time. But every time, if he was there for a kirtan, just a movement of Prabhupada's hands, somehow or another, there's like this tremendous, we could say, energy. If you look at anyone, tremendous energy. It was like he was looking personally into your heart. Sometimes you could feel how Prabhupada was feeling sad in the sense to see our hearts, happy that we're trying, sad that we're not taking fully the opportunity that he's giving. And when he put his hand up, everyone would just spontaneously jump in the air. Now another, I don't know which one to mention, funny one. Okay, I know, no, I'll tell a serious one. But when I took initiation from Srila Prabhupada in London in 1972, for some reason, the initiation was on Trafalgar Square. I didn't get initiated there. I did get initiated on Trafalgar Square, but somehow or another, I didn't get my beads there. I had to go into Prabhupada's room to receive my japa beads. Alone, I was in Prabhupada's room. Long story, I just cut it short. And so as there, I bowed down. I went in the room. I was nervous. I went into the room. Prabhupada was sitting there. And I bowed down. And I bowed down in front of Prabhupada. And I didn't do it quite right. Prabhupada said, bow down with both hands on the floor. So I did it then. And then he told me, gave me my beads, told me my name. And I bowed down again. And I had my beads in my hand. He said, bow down with both hands on the floor. So I put the beads on the table and bowed down again. And then he opened up, he had a tin, they call it tiffin in India, like a metal tin. And he pulled out a big sweet ball out of the tin and said, here, take this. And I was I was probably more satisfied receiving that than I was the beads, but I was very happy. And I took the sweet ball and bowed down again. He said again, bow down with both hands on the floor. I put the sweet ball on the table. And this recurred on several occasions in different times, two or three more times I can remember. And Prabhupada said, put both hands on the floor when you bow down. Something personal. I don't know if it was, maybe not for everyone, but it was something very personal. Prabhupada. I didn't have so much interaction with Prabhupada. You can see so many pictures of Prabhupada with his face. We say, devotees say, everyone said, Prabhupada's smile was oceanic. It seemed to have no limits when he would smile. And everybody would smile. He would laugh. It's like everyone would just, somehow or another, it just created. You don't need a laughing club. In India, they have these laughing clubs to try to get people to laugh. But simply Prabhupada's smile and his laughing would cause everyone to just feel happy. Just automatically, when you're in the association of someone who is genuine. And when he was feeling compassionate, you also felt the emotions. This is the effect of associating with a pure devotee. That those natural emotions can be evoked in whoever's fortunate enough to associate with them. And one thing, when I was in the car, I remember with Prabhupada driving in from the airport one time, Prabhupada was just talking about cow protection the whole way from the airport, whenever he was speaking. That was also 77, actually. He wasn't speaking much, but he was only speaking about cow protection. So it sticks with you. You realize that this is Krishna speaking through the pure devotee of the Lord. And when we try to satisfy that desire of the pure devotee, then satisfaction. Satisfy the Lord, then satisfaction is the effect. We satisfy the Lord, then we feel satisfied. It's automatic. So by trying to satisfy the pure devotee, because he's simply the representative of Krishna, then the more our emphasis is based upon that, the more genuine satisfaction. And the pure devotee does not aspire for satisfaction. He only aspires for the satisfaction of Guru and Gauranga, or Krishna and the spiritual master. And that's really the platform. It's not just some self-centered satisfaction. God is not our order supplier. He may be if that's what we want also, but he's our lover. And when we act with that selflessness, Prabhupada manifested complete selflessness in his service. Everything was for the pleasure of Krishna and his spiritual master. Everything. That is the real platform of true happiness. When our lives are based on it, it's not dependent on anything external, even on followers. Lord Chaitanya said, Nadanam Nijanam Sundaram Kavitam Vajagadishikame. I don't want any followers. I don't need them. Not that he doesn't want or not, but he doesn't need. No women, no beautiful women, no wealth. I don't care about any of these things. They come or they don't come. Simply, I want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. Causeless means no material motivation. Simply, motivation is to please you, because that is the nature of love. And love is the basis of happiness. There's no real happiness without love. They're inseparable in reality. In this world, they're connected. They may not be completely connected, but they're connected. In the spiritual world, is inseparable. Love is the actual. You don't even think about happiness. One simply thinks of the happiness of the lover, the beloved, like that. So Prabhupada was a living example of this. When he saw that others were taking the Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada was naturally happy. Naturally. He loved to see this. Okay, well, time is flying by and we don't have overtime. We may not be happy when we're chastised for going overtime. Sometimes you try your best and you get chastised. Why? Because Krishna is trying to take away this thought that I am the one. I should be feeling happy. I should be recognized. I tried my best. Because we're still thinking of me. I want. And naturally in the beginning, we're like children. It's naturally going to be there. But ultimately on the path of spiritual life, becoming free of the false ego, not the ego, the false ego of identifying with this body, identifying the material world is for my pleasure, even thinking God is for my pleasure, that devotees are for my pleasure, the world is for my pleasure. Yeah, this self-centeredness is false ego. When we see that everything is for the pleasure of Krishna, then real happiness starts to manifest. True happiness, without even asking. Okay, Ganga, is that time is up, isn't it? Only one question was there. Maybe there are more. I don't know who's tuned in.
Hare Krishna, Gurudev. Is it okay to ask a question, please?
Where are you? Who is it?
Gurudev from New Zealand. Wellington.
New Zealand. Are they allowed to ask? Are Kiwis allowed to ask questions here in the Govardhana? Is it allowed? Kiwis are allowed in the Govardhana?
I
Are
think
they allowed?
we can meet them.
You can understand what they're speaking?
Yeah.
Don't get too intellectual now. I've heard the Kiwis are very intellectual people. Who's speaking? Is this Rishikesh?
Yes, Maharaj. Hare Krishna, Gurudev.
It is. Don't row that boat across to Australia, okay? He's a boat captain. He's a captain of a boat. Well, he was. Okay, fire away, Rishi.
Not anymore.
No, you got released.
Right. Gurudev, you mentioned about happiness, and I was recently going through, and I'm just holding this in my hand, from chapter 5 of Bhagavad Gita. There's a mention of yo anta sukho antaramas. Basically, the happiness is within inside. But Maharaj, to get that happiness inside, can you please guide us some practical,
Yeah.
simple
This is
steps?
the 24th verse of the 5th chapter. It's one of the verses I would have read if we had time. One whose happiness is within, who is active within,
Yes.
who rejoices
Yes.
within and is illumined within. It's actually the person. Yes. Yeah, within. You're always without. You're without within. He is liberated in the Supreme and ultimately attains the Supreme. Yeah, I got it. Practical
Gurudev,
advice.
to reach that.
Yeah.
Yes, please. Because the Prakriti is going to throw, and we have been told a verse before, Shaknoti eva yeshodam, keep tolerating. I mean, when the circumstances disturb you and we are forced, let's say we do chanting, just times are bad, do some chanting. Even the chanting is a disturbed chanting. So can you give us some practical help on how to counteract all this?
Wow. As I said, don't get too intellectual. Rishikesh is a real philosopher. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for bringing us to the reality here, not just the theory of how that real happiness can be uncovered. Well, chanting. I can say, frankly speaking, I'll just start with a simple quote from Jiva Goswami. Jiva Goswami, I think it's in the Sandarbhas, I'm not sure, one of his writings, has said that in all the different limbs of devotional service, there is always some question mark. It's not always sure. Some doubt is there. But one limb of devotional service is infallible. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said the same thing. I'll mention that in a minute. Of all the limbs of devotional service, Bhaktivinoda said, he said one is infallible, and that is Sankirtan. Sankirtan, that the real happiness comes from, not from japa. Japa is also, you could say, is a form of kirtan, but it's basically primarily for our own self-purification. It has many other forms to it, but at this stage, it's usually self-purification. But Sankirtan means complete Sankirtan, glorification. It also means in chanting, in the association of devotees. Dancing, chanting, and spreading the Sankirtan movement, not amongst devotees, yes, and also taking it to the public. We are trying to follow the mood of Lord Chaitanya, which is literally manifested, I don't want to get too deep here, but manifested in the form of Nityananda. And Nityananda, Nitya, eternal happiness, eternal bliss, personified, spreading Krishna consciousness, giving it to others. It has to be given self without any expectation, ultimately. Beginning we may have. But going out on Sankirtan, on Harinam Sankirtan, chanting with devotees, dancing and chanting, and going out dancing and chanting with others in public, whatever we can do, whatever we can. But this is the real gateway or the real trigger to this process. It's not a selfish method, it's a sharing method. And in that process, he says, even our material motivations, our material attachments, our material called anarthas, unwanted desires, are not impediments on the path. So kirtan, Sankirtan, more and more. This is what is known as the Yuga Dharma. There is no other way. There is no other way. There is no other way. As simple as that. This is a Vedic statement spoken by Ishwara Puri to Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya has also spoken before. But this is a statement of fact for this age of Kali. Sankirtan. Other things must be there. But if they do not help to evoke the performance of Sankirtan, it is stated, I think Bhaktivinoda Bhaktisiddhanta stated, they are impediments on the path of pure devotion. Sankirtan. congregational chanting of the holy names is the main method of cleansing the heart. Cheto darpana marjanam. It's not just mechanical chanting. Now, the other side, which Prabhupada says, that's one thing. Our action, our absorption in kirtan. The other side is mercy. Ultimately, everything depends on mercy. The awakening, Prabhupada says, of our dormant, loving affection for Krishna does not at all depend upon the mechanical chanting and hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam or the holy name, whatever it may be. It doesn't depend on that. It depends wholly and solely, Prabhupada writes, wholly and solely on the mercy of the Lord. And then in that same vein, Bhaktivinoda, I think in Harinam Chintamani, writes that it is impossible. He says, it is impossible for the jiva to single-handedly overcome anarthas or offenses in chanting the holy name, whatever they may be, distraction, inattentiveness, whatever it may be. It is impossible to overcome it single-handedly. And unless we can overcome that, then we'll always be affected by, you could say, the modes of nature. We'll always be affected by our false ego. It is only possible, he said, by the mercy of the Lord. Therefore, one should fervently pray. That means with great intent. Pray, intensity and intent. Pray for the mercy of the Lord. There is no other means. Ultimately, it depends on the mercy of the Lord. It's not based upon a mechanical practice of yoga or whatever you want to call it. Just executing sadhana bhakti is most on our side is necessary, but ultimately it depends on the mercy of God, the mercy of the Lord. And that is open to anyone, the sincere intent within our hearts. Of course, that will evolve from stage to stage in our spiritual progress, what we're aspiring for, what we're approaching the Lord for. But ultimately, if we're approaching the Lord with any degree of sincerity, our progress will be possible by the grace of the Lord, not just by our endeavor alone. We can make some progress, of course, but ultimately it depends on the Lord's mercy. So if we really want to come to that platform of within, we have to go within. The Lord is within. Sadhana is externally engaging. Sadhana means to engage our external senses and mind in various activities for purification, release from karma, and so on and so forth. But the actual awakening is within. So we have to go within. We have to remember the Lord is in our hearts. So when we're chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, sometimes we hear devotees say, chant from the heart, not just from the mind, which can be seen to be the heart, but usually we see that as a subtle external body. But to chant from the heart, chant in remembrance. This is Krishna. We are associating with Krishna. When we say Hare Krishna, we're getting the chance to associate with Radha and Krishna. Hare is Radharani. We approach Krishna through Radha. Hare Krishna. So try to be attentive when we chant. Try to hear the sound. Remember that this is non-different. If we're thinking of someone we truly want to be with, whom we want to love, we'll be attentive in their presence. You know, if you're going for a job interview, you're going to be attentive if you want the job. If we're with a potential boyfriend or girlfriend, we're going to be very attentive and careful how we relate. Right? And everything, more or less, everything's like that, positive or negative in life. Right? So if we want to be with Radha Krishna, which is our opportunity, it behooves us to try to remember this. Yes, our mind wanders because we're still attached to so many other things, but reminding ourselves, this is Radha, this is Krishna. Let me try to associate with them through hearing the sound of their form in the form of Nam, Rupa, the name, the sound of Krishna appearing before us in this form of his name. Let me try to associate with him in this way. And if we try to associate with him, he'll associate, he'll reciprocate with us. This is going within a little bit. And more and more and more. Then you'll see the various emotional stages in devotional service evoking a further attachments to Krishna, etc., starting to manifest until ultimately one comes to the pure stage. But step by step, but at least we can try to remember, this is just not a nice song that we sing to be happy, a nice song that we sing to, get some whatever, singing for our bread and butter or something, whatever it is we're singing for. But it's actually, this is the way we please Krishna, the way we associate with Krishna, but just be attentive as much as we can. Just try to hear the sound of Krishna, Hare Krishna. And put aside other things. I'm busy right now. I have an appointment with Radha and Krishna. Please come back later. I have an appointment with Radha and Krishna. You can pray. Prabhupada said also, Bhakti Haridas Thakur made a beautiful prayer to Mahaprabhu. May the 10 offenses not affect me when I chant your holy name. I may always be absorbed in the namaras, in the nectar of service to the name. Srila Prabhupada said our only prayer should be, my dear Lord, you are sitting in my heart as the super soul. You can make me remember or forget as you like. I pray you always cause me to remember to chant your holy names. Please, my Lord. You please do not. You can put me into heaven or hell, I said, but please always remind me to chant. This is our problem. We don't chant enough. Not only we're not focused when we're chanting, okay, that may be understandable, but at least we can try to chant more. We can try to chant more and more and more. This way Krishna will see and reciprocate. We have faith, but we're trying, we're making an extra effort. If you want something, generally you have to make the extra effort. This is the extra effort. Don't try to think you can make Krishna appear or make Krishna whatever, fulfill my desires. Not necessarily like that, but at least we can make the extra effort to glorify Krishna, to chant his names more and more. And then it's really, we do our best. Krishna does the rest. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So thank you all very much. Is that okay? Is Ganga still there or is she gone? I can see Jyoti, and I can see Hema, and I can see Reed, and I should look at all the names now from memory. Aliona is still there. Nanikarishi is still there. Of course, Vilas is still there. Everyone else is still there. Ivana, is that okay? We finished there? Silence.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you, Gurudev. His Holiness Janananda Goswami ki.
All glories to all the devotees there in New Mayapur, all of you. New Govardhana, I mean. New Mayapur also. New Mayapur is France. I've been here too long, 18 months, 19 months now without going anywhere practically. Many people come. We had some great festivals in the summer at New Mayapur. We had a Kirtan Mela. Madhava Prabhu came, Madhava. Kadamba Kana Maharaj came. Agni Dev is staying at New Mayapur. Agni Dev, he's staying with us in New Mayapur full time. And who else was it came? Sachinanda Maharaj came. We had all these Kirtan Melas during the summer. And we're going out every week, 3 or 4 times overall on Harinama week on the streets in public. It's ecstatic. People are coming, I don't know, lockdown or no lockdown. In France, they don't seem to be so strong on it. And Sankirtan has been more this year than usual. More books have been distributed. And anyway, whatever, Krishna's mercy. So I hope you can very soon, the feeling of separation increases the mood of again, meeting again. So I hope that this lockdown, which you're experiencing there in Australia for some reason, will increase the ecstasy and the pleasure when you open up again, and the devotees with care all come together again and feast and dance and chant together in New Govardhana, wherever else you go, and to take the holy name into the streets of Murwillumbah, Lismore, Byron Bay, wherever you go, and Gold Coast, etc., Surfers, Coolangatta, all the places around there. Take the holy name everywhere and take Krishna everywhere. He wants to go everywhere. He wants to see his holy name chanted everywhere. So if we become a little bit of an instrument of Lord's desire, he said it clearly, I want my holy name spread everywhere. So we become a little instrument of that, and Krishna will be very happy, and you'll be happy too. In the association of devotees, we can be happy. Association is the other key feature, of course, always the key feature. To associate with devotees and perform devotional service in the association of devotees. It's nice to have some guidance in our lives, nice to have sometimes little corrections in our lives. If we accept those corrections, points, we make nice advancement in spiritual life. Jai, Hare Krishna. Okay, everyone. Ola, Aliona, Dave, Emma, Reed, Steph, all of you there in New Govardhan. Tara sitting right in the front, isn't that right? Is that Tara there under the hair? Hare Krishna, Tara. And all the others at the back there. And Haribo, Manadir is there. Haribo. And Gopal, I can't see everyone behind. There's a blockage right now, but I can see most of you. Who's that in the back? Who I can't see. Madhumati? Is that Madhumati in the back? Oh, Haribo. Haribo, Madhumati. And I see Arjuna online.
Ranadir is here as well.
Who?
Ranadir.
Yeah, I said Ranadir just now. I see.
And Surat is there too.
Who's there?
Suratanath.
Sura?
Yeah.
Haribo, Hare Krishna, bless the Prabhupada, good to see you. Jai Ho. Haribo, Ganga. And Chintamani, Kadashi, and everyone else.
Yeah.
Jodi. Hare Krishna.
Hare
And
Krishna.
Vilas. All glorious. Haribo, read. Jai. Keep reading. Make sure you read those books, okay? Amazing. Chant Hare Krishna and take prasadam. Lord Chaitanya's movement was dancing, chanting, and feasting. That's all you need to do ultimately. To go for self-realization in the age of Kali. Go in, dance, chant, and feast. Even if we can't dance, at least we should dance within our hearts. In other words, we should celebrate the kirtan of the holy name of Krishna. We'll wish you all the best, and Krishna willing, we'll see you again one day.
Thank you.
When that day will come. Kabi habi bolo sedi naman aparada guchi shudana meruchi kripa bala habe doye sanchar. When, oh when will that day be mine? Bhaktivinoda Thakur sings it. Offenses ceasing, taste for the name increasing. When in my heart will your mercy shine? When, oh when will that day be mine? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. Haribo.
Oh, Hare Krishna.
Enjoy those potatoes, okay? More potatoes. Okay? More, whatever you grow there. Eggplants.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Hare Krishna Maharaj Ji.
God bless the Prabhupada, everyone.
Hare Krishna Maharaj Ji.
Hari bol, Hari bol, Hari
We
bol.
got a good map there. Haribo. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Andy, Haribo from Australia, New Zealand, Fiji, Malaysia, India, Slovakia, Bratislava, all the way from Australia. New Gokul, Haribo.
Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Czech Republic, in your car, going to the restaurant. Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna Maharaj Ji.
Hari Bol, Hari Bol, wherever you are, Hari Bol, keep chanting. Don't worry. All the problems will go away. Don't worry, keep chanting. Hari Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Mm.